You are streaming live now from Fox on this Tuesday, January 18th, continuing to bring you new developments on a story that we first broke to you on Saturday. We're learning more about the gunman who held 4 people hostage inside of a Texas synagogue for more than 10 hours. Now, the hostages all escaped safely and that man was killed, but the investigation is far from over. So I do want to head out to the Dallas-Fort Worth area live right now to touch base with Fox 4's Shannon Murray, who has the latest on this investigation. Shannon, such a scary situation that unfolded over the weekend, and I understand that the gunman was a British citizen. So my first question to you is, when did he come to the United States?
Right, Regina, we are learning a lot more about the timeline here. So he was a British citizen. He flew in from the UK to JFK Airport in New York, and that was back on December 29th, so before the new year. We don't know how he then got to Texas from there, but we know sometime in the new year, he came to North Texas. He first stayed at a motel near DFW International Airport. We then know he stayed at 2 different homeless shelters. He was here in the North Texas area for a couple of weeks before that hostage situation and standoff that went on for more than 10 hours on Saturday. And we should mention he held 4 people hostage. They all escaped safely before that gunman was killed.
And Shannon, interestingly enough, we've had some new developments over the course of the last few days. So first off, I wanted to ask you about how this turned into a global investigation. I understand that 2 people were apprehended in the United Kingdom, I believe. Am I right?
Right. So in Manchester, England, police took in 2 teenagers who are somehow connected to Malik Faisal Akram. That's the hostage taker here in North Texas. They're 2 teenagers. They took them in for questioning, not facing any charges that we know of at this time, but it is believed that they are family members of Akram, and we're told that he was speaking with them, communicating with them at some point during that standoff on Saturday.
And speaking of family members, we are also learning that the hostage taker's brother, I believe, did an interview with the New York Times. So what did he have to say?
Right. He told the New York Times that he was actually also trying to help negotiators over in England. He was on the phone with his brother, trying to talk his brother down a little bit. He said that his brother has a criminal history. He said that he has some mental health issues and has really been distant from family in recent years. So he also was confused and had questions about how Akram was able to get into the United States through the port of entry in New York at JFK Airport. He had those questions and said he really had concerns about his brother's state of mind and well-being, and the family was aware that he'd been having some struggles and issues in recent years. He said that their other brother recently died from COVID, and he said that that Malik Akram had really lost contact with them and been very distant ever since that time.
And, Shannon, as we learn more about the suspect and who he was allegedly speaking to, working with, we're also learning more about that really just terrifying situation that unfolded on Saturday. I understand that the rabbi, he was one of the people that was held hostage by the gunman. And what can you tell us about the interview that he did with a news outlet talking about how they managed to escape?
Yeah, a lot of those hostages really being kind of quiet since then, not giving too many interviews. Of course, it's an ongoing investigation, so they have to be careful with what they say publicly. But the rabbi who was taken hostage did do an interview, and he explained that at one point he and 2 of the other hostages were sitting there trying to figure out how they can get out of there, how they could escape. And he decided to take a chair and throw it at the gunman and then yelled for the other 2 hostages to run. And that's how they bolted for the exit door and got outside and made it to safety and were able to get over to those FBI investigators who were already there on the scene and be able to make it out safely. And all of them were unharmed after they left that synagogue that day.
Yeah, and Shannon, something that stuck out to me was the fact that they had extensive training on whether or not, God forbid something like this were to happen. And that is basically what was able to allow them to escape. So that was really incredible to hear. Now, I understand that the rabbi was also present at a vigil that was held last night. So how can you tell us that the community has been supporting each other, holding each other up during this really, really scary situation?
Yeah, there was a vigil last night. It was at a Methodist church just about 3 miles from where that synagogue is in Colleyville. And Rabbi Citron Walker was there. He led a service for everyone. He said he was really just thankful that no one had to say the traditional prayer for mourning. He said that was just what they're so thankful for, that everyone survived. Everyone came out of this okay. The rabbi also thanked the other hostages who escaped alongside him on Saturday. He also encouraged people to just really share love as they all begin to heal. And he quoted Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., of course, on MLK Day yesterday, saying, "Love is the only force capable of transforming an enemy into a friend." And Regina, you mentioned how they'd had some training. I want to touch on that because one of the other hostages also did a very lengthy Facebook post kind of explaining his side of how things were when he was being held hostage. And he brought that up as well. He said, this was not by chance. We had training and I put that training into action of what to do in the case of an active shooter or a hostage situation. He said he was immediately aware of where the exit doors were. And when the hostage taker was asking them to take a seat, he sat as close as he could to that door and on the outside of the aisle. He said that he had his phone right next to him during the service, which he always does for that reason. And as soon as the hostage taker came in, he dialed 911, then put his phone face down to cover it so that the gunman wouldn't see that he had his phone and that he had asked for help. So he really followed some of the training that they had learned and that they'd been through to help them in a situation like this.
And Shannon, that is so important to constantly touch on, because I feel that when you do any sort of training, whether it's work at your church, in the moment you don't really want to take it seriously, but it can help you, in this case, survive in a situation posed like that. So definitely a wild story of survival, really. And we thank you and your team for continuing to bring us the latest developments on this situation, this investigation, and we'll be checking in with you again soon. Thanks so much, Shannon.
Thanks, Regina.